Welcome back to the Reach Your Dew Point podcast. I'm Roy Atkinson, your humble host. And today I have the wonderful pleasure of talking with Claire Agutter, who has been around the IT business for longer than it looks like she should have been, because she looks a little younger than one would expect. But you've been around for a while, Claire, I know, because I've known you for a bit. And she is a community builder. She is consistently nominated for Computer Weekly's Top 50 Women in UK Tech. And I was just in the UK, some of you may know, and I happened to be at the awards dinner at the ITSMF UK conference, where Claire received a Lifetime Achievement Award. Well-deserved, and the entire place was on its feet when you got that award, Claire. We have immense respect for you. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. So you are the force behind several things, probably the most prominent of which is Scopism. And Scopism is the proponent of SIAM, SIAM, which is Service Integration and Management, which has become increasingly important over time. And why don't you tell us just a little bit about what SIAM is and why it exists?
Yeah, of course. The easiest way to think about SIAM, probably for most of the audience, is an evolution of IT service management. So we all know, in the beginning, there were no computers, and then suddenly we had computers at work, and then we needed processes to manage them. And that was where IT service management was born. But beyond that, what then happened was a lot of companies started to realize they weren't actually that good at doing IT. It wasn't their core speciality. So outsourcing was born, and outsourcing itself has been on its own evolutionary journey. So from big kind of monolithic contracts with a 10-year term through to very agile and flexible contracting with a whole host of different service providers now. But really what's happened alongside that is the management bit of that has become much more complex. If you've got a digital system or an IT-enabled business process that has a really complex supply network underpinning it, when something goes wrong or you want to change something or improve something, it can be quite hard to understand how everything fits together. So service integration and management is a way of thinking about service management in this much more complex supply ecosystem that we all have to deal with now. So it looks across external service providers, it looks across internal teams, and it's basically saying, how do we govern and manage this thing end to end and make sure that ultimately we get the value that we expect from it?
Right. So originally, in the early days of service management, basically it was an IT department that was providing IT services to a company.
Yep.
Now we've got cloud providers, we've got application providers, we've got SaaS, software as a service, we've got contact center as a service, we've got all these different services that are being offered from various providers, which is that ecosystem you're talking about. And it is way complex these days. And there are so many considerations like security and like how do we make sure that the services we're offering will in fact provide what we're supposed to provide. So how does the knowledge around SIAM come to be, and how is it distributed?
So SIAM itself as an idea, a methodology, evolved out of a couple of UK government departments a few years ago now. So they were starting to think in that way. And when I founded Scopism back in 2016, one of the things that I wanted to do was help service management professionals adapt to how quickly the world was changing, because it used to be just maybe ITIL and PRINCE2, and that was all you needed really. And then all of a sudden we had DevOps and Agile and Lean IT and Green IT and Kanban, and it just felt overwhelming. So I'd set up Scopism with a few different business ideas that I wanted to test. And one of the things I was interested in was SIAM, because I could see it was evolving. I could see the need for it, but because it grew organically, there was nothing, it wasn't like ITIL where you could say, oh, well, I'll buy a book and read about that. So what I decided to do at the time was to go to my network. As you said, I've been in service management a long time. I've got a big network. But go to my network to see who was using SIAM and did anybody want to help me try and write it down. So we started with the SIAM Foundation Architect Group, which was about 40 people from around the world. And we wrote the foundation body of knowledge. And the whole purpose of that was to try and crystallize the ideas. So what is SIAM? How do you do it? The benefits, the challenges, the roles, the metrics, the things that people could just pick up and use. I didn't want to write something that was very academic, very theoretical. I wanted it to be something that people could take away, read, and just go back to work and try some things. So we ended up with the foundation body of knowledge that very quickly spawned the professional body of knowledge, which is much bigger. And what are we? 9 years later, we're on version 3 of the body of knowledge. We now have an online community. We have a conference that we run. We do dozens of virtual events as well. It's really just grown into this community enabled phenomenon. Scopism kind of spearheads it, and we created the space, but everything we do is kind of comes from the community, and it's for the community. So we make as much of it available as completely free as well.
I was about to mention the fact that most of this knowledge that you have is very accessible. And Scopism.com is a good way to get there, Claire. Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to Scopism.com, there's a link on there where you can register for our community. Our community is free to join. It's just a little sign-up process that you go through. Inside that community, you will find the body of knowledge as a free download. All the research that we've done over the years is a free download. And you'll also find about 4,500 other SIAM practitioners from more than 100 countries. So if you want to ask questions, share experiences, attend virtual events, look at past events, everything's in that community. So it's a really good place to start.
And of course, you're encouraging people who have knowledge in this area to share it. So that community works in all directions where people can learn and take away, but also contribute their experiences, ask questions, talk to each other, etc. Right?
Yes, absolutely. We like to think we have something for people at no matter what stage they are in their career, in their maturity. So we have, I know, kind of very recent graduates in there who are just learning all of these things, attending the events, asking questions. But then we have people who have maybe a bit more experience or a story to tell. And for them, it's an opportunity to contribute. And it's something that I found during my career, because when I was a baby in IT service management, I'd go to things like ITSMF and British Computer Society events and just soaking everything up like a sponge. And then as I learned a little bit more, there were things that then I could give back and share. And it's a brilliant opportunity for people. I think personally, it's really rewarding to know that you are doing things to help other people and to kind of create that network, to build those relationships outside of your own organization. I think has a lot of value as well, because within a single organization, it's easy to get stuck within that organization's culture or worldview. But when you join something bigger, you will get tested. And I think the body of knowledge refresh that we've completed this year is such a good example of that. So more than 70 contributors, countries all around the world, just groups of professionals who've come together to say, this is how we think the body of knowledge can be improved. I'm going to share my thinking about trust, about artificial intelligence, about organizational change management, whatever it might be. And I'm reasonably sure everybody had a great time. It was just such a blast exchanging ideas, and we do have a very high number of those people who've said, yes, we'd like to be involved in future as well when we do something else like that. So it's not just me saying it's fun. We do have proof, I think, that it's fun.
I'm going to touch on a little story here. And it's about the importance of having fun. A good friend of mine from my days in the music industry, John Reagan, was chatting with me one night. He had come to see me perform, and John is a very well-known gentleman who played bass and co-wrote a lot of songs. He worked for over 20 years with Peter Frampton. He worked with Stephen Stills, and he worked with lots of eminent people. And in this particular conversation, John said he was a little nervous about a studio date that he had upcoming. And I said, okay, why are you feeling nervous? And it was a date for a producer named Nile Rodgers, who's a very eminent guy in the music world. If you've ever heard Daft Punk's Get Lucky, that's a Nile Rodgers song. And so I said, well, you've worked with Nile Rodgers before, right? And he said, yeah. So the date went by, and a couple of weeks later, I saw John again, and I said, so how did it go? Did you do the date, and what happened? And he said, I walked into the studio, and I sat down, and I looked out across the room, and I said, if I can't go out there and have fun for 3.5 minutes, I need to find a new line of work. Mm-hmm. The result was Dancing in the Streets with Mick Jagger and David Bowie. One take. John did it in one take. And you can very clearly hear the bass line that John put down on that song. And I really took that to heart. And John doesn't remember saying it. John passed away recently, but he didn't remember saying that to me, but I sure did. And I've always felt that it's important for us, and it's not all fun and games. We know that a lot of it's very serious, and there are difficult conversations, and there's hard work to do. But the importance that you touched on of people enjoying working together and developing something is absolutely, absolutely mandatory, I think. And do you have further thoughts on that subject?
I do. I think, particularly in this digital age, community is so important, and what community means and how we experience community has changed as well. Particularly since COVID. Pre-COVID, I used to go to quite a lot of local meetups in cities near me. There'd be, Leeds DevOps, Leeds Agile. There were a lot more, let's get together, let's chat, let's have a few beers, let's have some pizza. During COVID, things changed, and it was happening anyway as technology advanced. But I think what the cultural change and the improvements in technology have allowed us to do is find and build a community of like-minded people, no matter where they are in the world. And I think the improvements of technology have meant that we can now experience online community in a way that is as rewarding, maybe a little bit different, but as rewarding as those face-to-face meetups. And, one of the things with the body of knowledge refresh was we had participants from Australia, we had participants from America, and trying to structure the meetings, the time zones, make sure it was fair for everybody. We had some contributors who were non-native English speakers, so they preferred to do the kind of the chat or the document editing because they weren't confident in the meetings. So I think community is it's such a joy to be involved with, and it can lift you personally and professionally. What you're able to do collectively is just wonderful as well. But it saddens me occasionally when people, I talk to them about community and they kind of say, oh, well, what's in it for me? And you think, well, if you can't see that, I mean, maybe I've not done a very good sales job, but if you can't understand that, you are not open to the power of community. And I know, there's people in our community who have got new jobs through the community. They've got consulting contracts, they've got new opportunities. But that's just a tangible thing. The big thing is the relationships that get built, the new ideas that come out of it. And I just think it's hugely important. And doing all of this online just takes it into a whole new space. And I forget now sometimes, have I met somebody in person or just online? My brain chemistry almost seems to have altered so that I remember these online meetings as if we were all in the room together.
Yeah, I have that same experience, and you and I know that we were ships passing in the night there for quite a while before we actually finally sat in the same room, which was nice. We would wave to each other at conferences and say hi. And then we finally got to sit down, and I think I pinned you down in Manchester a few years back. And
yes, we had lunch.
We did have lunch in a lovely setting, and it was great. But we do relate to each other in different ways now. But I always think of it as being we relate to each other in more ways,
mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's kind of where you were going. So aside from producing this wonderful community and having this wonderful community that people can access, tell me a little bit about the business side of Scopism and some of the other enterprises that you're involved with, because you're a serial entrepreneur.
Something like that, yes. So I think if we talk about Scopism, first of all, so with Scopism, the body of knowledge is free, the community is free. That's all really, really lovely, but it does create a small challenge in terms of me being able to buy food, pay the team, things like that. So one of the things we've done with Scopism, and the jury's still out as to whether it'll be a long-term success, but one of the things we've done is try and build a fairly unique commercial model to sit underneath it. So we have small revenue streams that come from licensing the IP in different ways. So to Exin, our certification partner for the SIAM Foundation and professional exams, to a publisher that does hard copies of the books. We run conferences, which provides a small amount of income. But the biggest model for us is through our partners. And our partners are the large organisations who operate in the SIAM space. So consultancies, managed service providers, tooling organisations. And what we have with them is a renewing annual partnership. So at the start of the partnership, we'll assess their SIAM capabilities, we'll accredit them and give them a badge and a report that they can use in their bids, their tender responses. And then we have an ongoing relationship where we kind of mutually benefit from the experience that they're having working with SIAM customers all around the world. So we do things like co-branded case studies, we do virtual events. So we help them to build their brand awareness in the SIAM space and kind of establish them as leaders in the SIAM space. So companies like Atos, Infosys, HCL Tech, Kinetic IT, they're all partners that we work with. And, we're incredibly grateful because the the money that they spend with us allows us to then continue to build the best practice and support the community of practitioners. So that's kind of the model for Scopism. We don't have massive aspirations. You know, we don't want to be 100-person organisation. We want to continue as a small team that does amazing things with a massive community, and how we everything that we do, everything that we do operationally is kind of related to that. So that's Scopism. But as you mentioned, Scopism is the second business that I've started. Almost 20 years ago, I was working at the time as an ITIL trainer and met somebody who wanted to create ITIL e-learning. And at the time, what was available in the e-learning space was pretty much nothing for ITIL. So started a business which was, at the time, was ITIL Training Zone. It went through a couple of rebrands along the way, but creating e-learning initially for ITIL Foundation, and then as ITIL evolved, adding all the V3 courses. But then as IT service management evolved, we rebadged the company to ITSM Zone and added things like DevOps, BRM, COBIT, Abashi, ISO 20000. So all e-learning, 100% e-learning. And that was a really interesting professional learning curve. In the beginning, we had to fight extremely hard to develop a quality product that could be accredited, because the thinking at the time was that classroom training was the only acceptable way to do things. E-learning was kind of a poor relation. It wouldn't be as good. So we had to work quite hard, both technically and from a design perspective, to build something that would deliver outcomes that were as good. And as we went through that journey, the technology evolved, more and more companies got into e-learning as well. But that was a good space to be in, and I enjoyed education. I think, again, there was looking back, I can see there was actually a community element that came alongside that. We had customers who would come back, and any course that we released, they would come back and take that course. We had people that we knew, despite e-learning being kind of at a distance in terms of the student tutor relationship. So there was, I think, the first seeds of a community at that point, and it's really lovely that I'm still connected to some of our very first ITIL experts that we trained online on LinkedIn, and I kind of chat to them occasionally. It's nice to have those relationships.
I think that one of the things that stands out to me in this world of IT and IT service management is the opportunities that we have to build communities and the support that we all receive from the various people and organizations around the world. It's really a global thing, and the communities are very broad-based and very supportive. So we are grateful to you, IT world, for that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we couldn't do half the things that we do without that kind of community. So I'm going to condense this down and say that your dew point, one of your big dew points, was saying there's a need for this. I'm going to see if there's enough interest to try to have a community around this, and thinking specifically of SIAM and how that has developed. And that is, I think, one of the many ways where people find that dew point and say, okay, now it's time for me to take an action as a result of and in advance of something happening in this particular idea that I have. So thank you for that, for founding Scopism and for having an illustrious career so far, and who knows where we go from here with AI and so forth? Who knows? And just if you have any particular thoughts on that subject, I'd be interested to hear you too, because I'm working on some strategic AI advisory information and working with a university in that regard. So what do you think? Is it going to help us? Is it going to hurt us? What's it going to do?
How long have we got, Ronnie?
Really? Really?
I mean, it's such a massive topic, and I think some of my main thoughts are, firstly, AI it's the first time the conversation has been completely technology led rather than problem led. So your traditional service management thinking is get close to your customers, understand their challenges, look at how you might resolve them, find the technology, if required, that will underpin that and build the service. Whereas what we have now is customers coming to us and saying, I want to do something with AI. And you say, what? And we don't know. We just want to do something with AI. So I think that's the first thing, that there's a huge amount of energy, money being put into AI initiatives. I don't always think we're putting the correct guardrails around them, the correct thought process. There is a balance that needs to be struck against. It's what they call shadow IT. I don't like shadow IT. I think it's a real loaded negative term. But there is a balance that needs to be struck, particularly in large organisations, whether that's public sector or private sector, between how your employees all over the organisation are starting to use AI because they're using it at home, and the governance that you still need to be able to do, the auditability, the security, the checks and balances that you need to have in place. So there's genuinely a massive opportunity. I think AI is astonishing technology. It has its limits as well. Of course it does. It almost feels like everything else is running behind to try and work out what exactly this looks like. I do also think we're in a bit of a bubble and some incredibly shady financial things happening in the broader AI ecosystem, but that really is a conversation for another day. But I think as service management professionals, as management professionals, really the principles underneath don't change. We still need to make sure we're secure, we're compliant, we're auditable. We still need to make sure that we're applying the right technology in the right place to resolve the right problems. I think AI maybe just opens the door to some opportunities that we hadn't thought of as yet.
Excellent. Great answer. Thank you. And opportunity is what we're all looking for. So I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your incredibly busy life to have this conversation, Claire. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and get ideas from you and hear what you have to say. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I feel like we're just getting started as well.
Oh, we are. We'll meet again about a half hour from now. Is that? Yeah.
Works for me, right?
All right. Great, Claire. Thank you so much.